Hello! How is everyone doing? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 146. Tonight we're joined by Caroline Boller. I'm so excited to have her on the show because she just came off. About time. She just came off of like one of the hottest, fastest times in American 50-mile trail history. In fact, the fastest in American 50-mile trail history with a 5:48. It's bonkers. And the kicker is that she's only been running for 4 years. She's like brand new to the sport, which is just, it's crazy. So we're going to talk to Caroline on today's show all about how she trained for it, what got her started, how she did this, and what's next and all that good stuff on Ginger Runner Live, episode number 146. We're also going to be shouting out some incredible performances from this weekend.
It was a great weekend for women.
Amazing weekend for women in running. And it's cool to have Caroline on to talk to her about how she did this. So what is up, everyone? Happy Monday. I'm excited for tonight's show. Let's get it started. Ginger Runner. Yay! What's up, everybody? Happy Gingermas. I can actually say it. And, Merry Gingermas. There it is. It officially is Gingermas week.
We need to get it to feel the snow in here.
That shouldn't be that difficult in Los Angeles. What is Gingermas? Well, every year at some point in December, we celebrate the festive holiday associated with the color of my hair called Gingermas. Basically, it's a great opportunity for Kim and I to give back to you guys, the community that supports us throughout the year, whether you're watching our vids or supporting us through Patreon or just following us on social media. It all helps basically to help this business happen. So we like to give back. And Gingermas last year we did a whole 12 days of Gingermas, which was really fun, but also exhausting. We thought it would be just fun to do the Gingermas run hunt this year, but take it up a notch. So keep your eye on social media this week because this is Gingermas week. Lots of stuff will be happening over the course of the next 5 days with a pretty awesome weekend coming up. But it is now time that we can announce Merry Gingermas. And so all week, use the hashtag if you want. It'll be a lot of fun. Take pictures on your run, track your runs, all that stuff.
Raul in the chat room was already ahead of you. He already used the hashtag Gingermas before you even said it.
Well, way to jump.
Replacing you as the host.
That's it. I was going to say Raul is disqualified. You can't use it before we announce it. That is a lie. Well, welcome to tonight's show. Really, really excited. Amazing weekend in women's running. Lots of records being broken. And before we even start the show, we have an amazing guest. Caroline Boller just set the women's American 50-mile trail record in 5 hours and 48 minutes for 50 miles. It's gnarly pace. It's gnarly. It's so fast. We're going to talk to Caroline on tonight's show all about that. Really excited. And we want to make sure that we shout out some of the big performances from this weekend. Former guest of the show, Maggie Guterol, won the Brazos Bend 100-mile outright. Overall, in just over 14 hours. She was chasing some records too. Ended up, I believe, she won overall, and I believe set the course record too.
I think so, yes.
Just, she did, which is just, it's insane. Just over 14 hours. A big shout out to Maggie, an incredible performance. Casey Lichtheim, another former guest of the show as well, won her race that she was just on the show recently and had been talking about how she was nervous about this race.
So it was I think a 9 p.m. start or something like that for her. Yeah.
And I don't think she's done much night racing because she's too fast. She always finishes in daylight or sunset. So Casey Lichtheim was talking about that race and she won it overall, which is amazing. So shout out to Casey. And Courtney DeWalter, overall winner of the Desert Solstice 24-hour, which is a track race where you just keep logging miles as long as you can, with something, Caroline, like 147 miles or 143 miles?
Yeah, 147, I think. Yeah.
So crazy. So huge shout out to Courtney and another big shout out to Gina Slavey. Broke Ann Trayson's 100-mile record.
Yeah.
This is a world record mile distance. In
crazy.
A bombing 13 hours and 45 minutes, 49 seconds. That is yet to be confirmed because of the way that they were tracking it through stopwatches and stuff like that. But it is essentially known that record has been broken, which is, I can't fathom.
That's not far off my 50-mile PR.
That's the kind of times we're talking about here. Is 13,
that is fast.
13 hours and 45 minutes. Oh, okay. That's like a 50-mile time or 100K time for a normal human.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, our guest tonight, Caroline Boller, ran the Brazos Bend 50-mile race this weekend, won it overall in an incredible 5 hours and 48 minutes, setting a new American female 50-mile trail record in the process. And again, this is a time you look at that and go, oh, what a great 50K time. No, she ran 5:48 for 50 miles, basically like having any PR that both Kim and I have as far as that distance. We are joined on the show by Caroline Boller. How are you, Caroline? Congratulations.
Yay!
Thank you. I'm great. I'm doing really well. Yeah, I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
You got it. Cool. That's our show. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it. No, I'm just kidding. If you have any questions for Caroline during tonight's show, we're going to talk to her all about her story and this weekend's race. Kim?
I'm in the chat room as always, so make sure you're asking your questions there. I'll be polling throughout the show.
And we're sipping some good brew this evening.
It's very
all right.
tasty.
Caroline, how are you feeling post-race? Because I imagine this effort is it takes its toll on the body. So are you limping around the house? Are you like celebrating still? Are you sleeping lots? What's the story?
Oh, I would love to be sleeping lots, but I'm a mom and that's pretty busy, and I also work part-time as well. So no, I would love to just kind of snuggle up in bed and take a little nap, but that doesn't really happen. I'm feeling really good. And I think the fact that this was a really good race has definitely helped to make me mentally overcome any physical impairments that my body is having. And, I'll probably end up with one of these wonderful winter colds that's going around right now. But for now, I'm holding in there. I have a little cough, but I'm gonna hopefully hold it off and take care of myself, and everything will be just fine.
Yeah, Kim and I were at a Christmas party and we realized let's just not touch anybody. We don't want to catch any of the Christmas colds. So yeah, we just left. No, just kidding. I'm real. Your story is fascinating to me. You've only been running for 4 years now. You started when you were 38, and I want to know kind of what got you into the sport. What drew you to? Was it specifically trail running, or had you kind of been a hobby runner for a long time, or what's your beginnings?
Well, I mean, I grew up riding horses, so my brother ran track, but other than that, we really had nobody in my family that had any kind of athletic background at all. So I just never really had that as something that was expected of me, or nobody kind of encouraged me really to do that because it wasn't really something that our family was involved in, right? So I got into horses, and I did that for a while in my teens and early 20s. And then I got a job, and I just sort of had a normal life where, you live a fairly sedentary life. You sit at your desk all day, and I worked long hours, and I really didn't have a lot of physical activity. I was living in London at the time. So getting outside, it's just a fairly congested place. Going for a run or something it would be on the treadmill probably more than, out anywhere out and about. So I never really did anything like that. I will say I did train for like 2 months. I trained for a half marathon and did a half marathon in my probably mid-20s. And then after that, I ran the half marathon and just stopped running because I was too busy with work commitments. And even though I really enjoyed running, it was just too much for me to try and squeeze it in. And then over the years, I got married and I had kids, and I just never, it was sort of, I could see the sort of slow decline happening where you sort of, you get a couple pounds here that are harder to shed, and you're not eating so well, and you're not really taking care of yourself. And I had sort of, my blood pressure was always sort of borderline, like pre-hypertensive kind of thing. And I really, I'm not sure that I felt great about that, but I didn't really have any direction to kind of channel that, anything that I knew how to do or knew that really interested me, any activity that sort of just had a hook for me and that I wanted to get into.
Yeah.
So it was definitely something that I would love. I wanted to do something about it, but I didn't know how. And my husband actually had been a runner off and on over the years and had always encouraged me, let's go for a little run, let's do this. And so every now and then I'd have the occasional like 1 or 2 mile jog, but really, I mean, it was occasional. It was very sporadic, and it was.
Yeah, you weren't on any sort of training calendar or anything.
No, oh my gosh, it was like, you know, maybe I would do one run once a week, or maybe I'd go on for a couple 3 weeks. I'd do like 2 or 3 runs a week, and then I'd sort of taper off after that. You know, it never really kind of had any staying power with me. And then for a while, you know, my husband really got into running, and he would get like Trail Runner magazine and Ultra Running magazine, and we sort of started reading about these stories of people, and they're very compelling stories, very interesting. And he would come back from these runs, and he always looked so refreshed and energized, and he looked so fit, like his body looked so fit. I was like, oh man, now I like the pressure's on. I feel terrible. I'm like a slacker, you know. And so I started running on the treadmill in the garage, because with young kids, I had like basically a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old at the time. And with young kids, it was really hard to get out of the house. I was at the time a stay-home mom, and just finding that time for me was really hard. So I would take when the kids were napping, I would take the monitor into the garage, and I would just do small runs, and I would build up from there. And the fact that that was accessible to me, because we had a treadmill, made it sort of something that I could do. It was really a very nice time for me to be able to have something that was just for me. I didn't, you know, I needed some kind of outlet like that as a stay-at-home mom. I love my kids, and it's such a privilege to be able to spend that time with them. But it was nice to have that, almost like an indulgence, to get out and feel like I just did something, I accomplished something that was just for me. And for a couple months, you know, my husband would say, oh, you know, we live like a mile away from this really awesome trail system. You should really go check it out. It's beautiful out there. And that just seemed, even though it was just a mile away, it seemed like a big obstacle to getting out there, because, you know, I would have to find somebody to watch the kids so I could leave the kids at home. And I didn't really have that kind of support network so much. Robert's working outside of the home. So it was hard. And finally, one weekend, I just relented, and I said, okay, all right. So I went out there, and oh my gosh, I just had this amazing run where I absolutely fell in love with the trail. It was just one run, and I never looked back. It was,
wow.
It was like almost, you know, you hear people, it's a little kind of cheesy or whatever they say, it's like almost like their meditation, but for me it really was. It was just getting out in nature. I didn't have that in my life. You know, I was a person who lived in the suburbs, and just we never really did a lot of that stuff, and so I was like, oh, trees, wow, like, this is so awesome. You know? I mean, it seems silly now because I do so much of that on a daily basis, but at the time it was really a revelation to me. And it just sort of snowballed from there. I didn't have a coach. I didn't know anything about running. Oh my goodness, I knew nothing. I mean, I just go out and run. I had no training program, or I wasn't doing workouts or any kind of speed work or anything. I didn't know anything about that stuff. So I just liked to run on the trails. So that's what I did. I just went out there anytime that I could. I ran out there, and I started to get faster, and I thought, okay, and there's like a few local races in a local running club, the Empire Runners, that I joined some of their races and sort of had some fun doing that. But it was very low key. Right? Yeah, this was, we were in Northern California in Santa Rosa at the time. And so I did a few of those races and just really enjoyed it. And I started to, you know, I guess get a little bit more competitive, and I wanted to know, gosh, what could I do with this? Where could I take this? And I think it was the Boston bombings that I thought, you know, I saw that and I thought, wow, I would really like to run a marathon, and I would really like to run that at Boston, just almost as a show of, it kind of just really spoke to me, like as a show of solidarity, to show that, you know, you can't like, it was almost, you know, to do something as so horrific and so awful like that. And it was almost like, I didn't want people to think that they should be afraid of running, or that they shouldn't, you know, get out there and do it anyway. And I mean, I think there's risk in anything that you do. And I wanted to join that race, and And so that was a goal of mine. And I ran my first marathon, and it was just so awful. It was such an awful experience trying to qualify for Boston. Did not quite go as planned. It was like an epic blow up, just completely awful.
Awesome.
And so what I thought was, so this is the truth of what happened then was I thought, oh my gosh, I'm really not a very good runner. Maybe I should just go and do what I really love. This isn't about being competitive. And I really loved being on the trails. And so I in 2013, December of 2013 was my first ultra race. I thought, well, I just tried to do a marathon club, so 50K. Okay, I could probably struggle through a 50K. And I raced at the North Face, the 50K there in December. And I had a really good race. And it came in 5th. And for me, that was like to be in the top 10 even. And I know it's the 50K, it's not the 50 miler. It's not as competitive. I mean, I think now it really is, but at the time it wasn't quite as competitive.
Yeah, it's still very competitive. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, now it's super competitive. Yeah. But I just thought, gosh, maybe there's something here. Maybe I could continue to progress and get better at that. And so it's just sort of blossomed from there. Then I ran a 50 miler, and I happened to run into another runner who was coached by Sage Canaday. And he said, oh, you should contact Sage. You should get a coach. And so I did. And Sage was my first coach, and it was Sage and Sandy. And they really kind of guided me through my first speed work and my first structured training program. I'd never really done that before. And it was pretty awesome. Yeah. So
it's such an awesome story, because it really was in the first year of you really running, based on that timeline, that you then did your first 50K. Because I believe your first is 2013, the North Face 50K.
Yeah, in December. Yeah.
And I like just that short amount of time, but then you're rocking trail races, 5th place, and basically podiuming in multiple races since then. It blows my mind, because it's talent. It's real talent that you're born with, and it's just kind of finding this out. At what point did you go, oh, I want to do this? Like, I want to race and I want to be competitive and all that kind of stuff. At what point did that kind of start clicking in?
I think it's always very exciting doing speed work and seeing a progression to see, wow, I had no idea that I could run that fast. I mean, it just, I remember the first time that I ran a sub 7 minute mile pace for half a mile. And I thought that was so fast. I couldn't believe I'd run that fast. I thought, gosh, I wonder how long I could hold that for, how much further I could take that, or how much faster I could get. And for me, it's that numbers game that really kind of, I love to see. It's not really about competing against other people for me. It's about competing against myself and seeing what I can do and how I can push myself. And where is that end point? Where is the point where I'm not going to continue to progress as a runner time wise? I'll always love being out there, and I want to continue running long beyond the time that, I've seen my best races and seen my best times. But, I still feel like I'm at a point in my running where I can continue to grow as a runner and continue to get better. And also I've been trying to find those places where it sort of suits my particular skills and strengths as a runner. And that has been a process of trying just about everything on the spectrum. So, I love to do the stuff that isn't always my strength too, because it's just fun, right? And there's a lot to be said for that, for going out and just enjoying it and having fun with it too, and not feeling, I don't like to even put pressure on myself to, when I'm out there, I want to do well and I want to have a good time, but boy, I'm not a very good, I tend to, like, the bigger races that I run are often the ones that I don't do well in. And I don't know if it's because I put too much pressure on myself and I blow up, or I don't even know what it is, but those tend to be almost my harder races.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, but what's really fun about looking at your results and just kind of hearing your attitude, it's like you have gotten better every race. Like, that's the ability, is that you, over the last 4 years, have been able to, I mean, I'm just looking at your first 50K time is just a few minutes faster than your most recent 50-mile time. I mean, that's kind of the difference that you're talking about here, just over the course of 4 years. And it's amazing. And that's why I think we're about to see some really cool seasons from you. And it's exciting because basically what you did this weekend is just like you just getting started. And I think that's what's pretty exciting. I kind of want to talk a bit about Western States, because I know that you you've run Western States twice now. You qualified, you got a golden ticket to get into States the first time, placed 8th that first time, and then came back to States recently and placed 12th, which is still incredible. How are those experiences for you? I mean, as your like first 100 milers and your first experience running that on such a big stage and that kind of thing, was that different for you, or were you excited about it? You kind of talked a little bit about it just there, but I'm just really curious on how Western unfolded for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because I think what you said before about how my running has progressed and sort of each race gets better. I mean, I would sort of beg to differ with that a little bit, in that I think my running has progressed for sure in general. Like my training, I see it in my training that it builds and builds and builds, and everything, continues to improve. And yet I'll go out and I'll have, for every couple of races, I have a really good race. I have for sure at least one that is definitely below my expectations and didn't quite go as planned. And I am the first to raise my hand and say that 100 miles, boy, I don't have that figured out yet. That is a tough distance. And I think a course like Western States could suit my skill set. I'm not sure that I'm naturally, an enormously talented mountain climber. I think I'm actually a pretty average climber. So a course like Western States could work out for me if I were able to get it right. And so my first experience last year was a really great first experience, in that I went in with completely zero expectations. I'd never done a 100 miler. I was just in awe of the distance. I had come off an injury, and I really didn't know how fit I was, and I wasn't sure if I could really go the whole distance. And so I ran a really conservative race. And that worked out. And actually, I think in hindsight is probably the best way to approach a 100 miler, because then I tried it the other way this year, and that didn't work out that great for me. I started off fairly conservatively, and then I just was feeling super good. So between like mile 30 and mile probably a little after Forest Hill, maybe like towards the end of the kind of Cal Street stretch there, I just felt so, that kind of marble in a groove, that expression that is just, when somebody has that just awesome flow state that, you want to have when you're running a race like Western States.
And that's that's a notoriously difficult section too. When most people, that's when they crumble.
Well, it's interesting because I was running in the canyons, which from my skill set is probably my weakest area. And that's where I was passing everybody. I mean, I passed 5 or 6 of the women just in the canyons.
Wow.
And so I was in third for quite a long stretch, coming, through Forest Hill and down, and just before Cal 3, Devon passed me, and she was just having a great day. She was flying. She really looked amazing. And I was really struggling to kind of maintain that groove that I was in. And then going through the river, I talked about it on my blog. That something about the river, I don't know what it is. It just sort of upsets the balance of things. And it was hard for me to get back into it again. And my race just went from there on. It was not good. So yeah, I'd love to tackle 100 miles, whether it's Western States or another course, and feel that I actually had a solid race from start to finish. There's so many elements in a 100-mile race. Nutrition's a huge part of it. Just the heat, of course, at Western States is a huge part of it. And just how to know when you're on the right pace for 100 miles is really hard to dial in. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you're spending hours figuring that out. It's not like, oh, I'll just pick this pace for the whole thing and I'm good to go for 99 more miles. It's, well, this chunk of 10 miles I have to do at this pace. You're constantly in flux. And that's why I'm also still really excited to see what happens next, because I know there's coming off of 2016, which is still like an incredible performance. I know that you still have it out for that 100-mile distance, and I feel like there's going to be some pretty amazing things. We have some amazing live viewers, regulars, and a lot in the chat room. So again, I want to remind you, if you have questions, make sure you ask them in the chat room for Caroline. Kim's had pulled a bunch aside here.
Sure. You touched on this a little bit. Kimosabi75 in the chat room asks, when you first started, did you know you would be this fast? So were you aware of your speed when you first started? And if not, how did you get your speed? How did you build on your speed?
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, I started like everybody else, where you run for a half mile and you're winded and you feel like you're about to die. And you just have to build from there. It took months and months before I could comfortably go for a 5-mile run even. You know, you really have to have that consistency. And like I said, I knew nothing about running and the discipline of running and how to get faster. And I've now, you know, I through coaching have been able to understand the parameters that go into that. And I spend a lot of time, you know, focused on those efforts now, those faster miles to be, you know, doing what I'm doing. And I had no idea that I would ever have the capacity to do something like this, and I'm excited to see if there's more. I don't know if there's more, but let's find out.
For sure. Go for it.
Yeah, question from Ruben Parks in the chat room. Do you still have a coach? If so,
Yes.
What has changed most in your training over the past couple of years?
Yes, so I'm coached by Mario Fraioli, and we've been working together for the last year. I tried to I tried to sort of do some stuff on my own before picking up Mario, and it was a complete disaster. I don't have the discipline to write out a training plan, and winging it didn't really work for me. I ended up just running a bunch of miles and grinding myself down into the ground. I had one really good marathon. I had my marathon then PR, and just completely was overtrained, not overtrained like overtraining syndrome, but just was overtrained at that point, self-inflicted. I need the discipline of somebody telling me what to do and in what is a good, you know, how to build up towards a race. I'm not knowledgeable enough, nor am I think, very disciplined about holding myself back to not overdo things. I think ultra runners in general are sort of drawn to excess, right? Like there's some part of your like DNA that likes excessive things and finds some kind of sick pleasure in that. I guess I don't know what, but so if left to my own devices, I'd run like 130 miles a week and destroy myself. So it's not a good idea.
Yeah, that's funny you bring that up, because it's so true amongst ultra runners of well, there's that fear of missing out, and there's also that kind of comparison where you see someone running 150 miles a week and go, oh, well, they're totally healthy running 150 miles and they're out there adventuring all the time. I'm going to try that. And then you try it and you go, I almost died. Like, that's the worst. Right. That's not for me. Mario's been on the show before. He has that awesome, the weekly shakeout, and solid dude. So shout out to Mario Fraioli and their whole coaching crew. So that's good. That's awesome. We still have some live questions. Let's do one more and then we'll start talking about Brazos Bend.
Sure. Question from T. Schwartz. What's your recovery plan?
Well, I am trying to hydrate really well. I think is really important. I've been having some headaches, I think probably from dehydration, and just when you travel, you get dehydrated as well. So flying back from Texas, I probably wasn't on my hydration as much as I should have been. So I'm trying to really stay on that. Eat well. It's really tough at this time of year because it's the holidays and there's lots of treats to be had. And it was my birthday actually on Saturday. So
that's right. Happy birthday!
Thanks. So I still feel like, I kind of missed out on a few treats on my birthday because I was running. So like, a couple Christmas cookies here or there are probably not going to kill me. But in terms of running, I'm taking a few days off for sure. And I really wanted to go to the gym today and just swim. But it didn't happen today, but I will tomorrow. And I think doing a couple of days of that and then just lightly getting back into running, really just very gentle, very easy, just a few miles here throughout kind of the course of the week. And then, you know, as I transition towards the weekend, I'll pick up a few more miles, but again, really easy. And then this is kind of my off season now.
I was just going to ask, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to the extent that I really have one, it's California, so it's so hard to have an off season because the weather is really good.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't have another race like in January or something. I don't have anything else on the horizon right now that's forcing me to do hard runs or long runs or anything. So I'm just going to kind of chill out and enjoy the holidays.
That sounds awesome. I want to talk a bit about Brazos Bend because this is kind of obviously this is a huge deal. This course is unique. It's a loop-based course. I'm really curious on kind of what drew you to this race because it is fairly flat. You've done a lot of mountain races, or at least really hilly races in Northern California and across the U.S. What drew you to this particular course and the loop-based sort of thing? Yeah, were you intending to go there to set a record or to get a personal record for yourself at that distance, or kind of what was the goal for this race?
Yeah, so I'd heard of the race, and then I was thinking about what I wanted to do next. And in fact, when he was running JFK, it was 3 weeks ago, I was running JFK, and I really enjoyed that towpath section that I think a lot of people, they either love it or they hate it. Some people really struggle with it because it is so super flat and very monotonous. But I really kind of got in my groove and enjoyed that section. And I thought, well, and I had just run the 50K World Championships 8 days before that race. And so I thought, if I can feel this good on this kind of surface, this trail, because the towpath is still a trail, but it's just really flat. I wonder what I could do on a flatter 50 mile. And so I sort of looked up on Ultra Sign Up, what races are coming up? And I saw the Brazos Bend race. And I know Rob through USL days, you know, it's not around anymore, but Ultra Sports Live, when it was around, he interviewed me after my race at Black Canyon. And so I sort of was familiar with Rob. And so I sent him a message and I said, hey, you know, tell me about your course. Is it like, how flat is it? What kind of course is it? What kind of footing is it? And he sent me some pictures and told me a little bit about the course. And it sounded like just what I was looking for. I wanted to have a 50 miler that removed the elements of too many hills, which can be really fatiguing on the legs. And I just wanted to see, I wanted to challenge myself how fast I could do it. And for whatever reason, that just appealed to me. And so when he told me about the course, and it truly is it's a pretty flat course. I may think for the 50 miles, I registered just over 300 feet of elevation gain. So that's about as flat as it gets. So, and the surface was really good. I would say probably 95% of the surface is fairly smooth, gravelly that kind of trail, right? There's some sections that had a small amount of mud. There's some sections where the gravel was almost like a kind of a broken up asphalt and it was a little bit deeper, but shorter sections, those are harder to kind of maintain such a steady rhythm in, but they were short and they, you know, there's some turns. Like there's a 180-degree turn on the course. It's a loop course, but you're doing sort of multiple loops around lakes. So it's not just a straight shot even as a loop. It's not just straight ahead of you. Right. And that actually kind of made it interesting because you see other runners on the course, you know, being the loop format, and you sort of have some turns, some different scenery, some things to make the time pass quickly and for it to be interesting. So the course just sounded really great. And Rob made me aware of Ann Trayson's mark, of 6:14:51 that was set in 1994 in Huntsville, Texas, which I think is the same. I don't know this because I'm not familiar with the area, but I think it's maybe where Rocky Raccoon races run. So again, a fairly flat course, but I think that has a little bit more rollers and a little bit, probably, I hear it's more rooty. So always hard to compare any two trail races. But I thought, gosh, I wonder if I could go under 6 hours on a course like Brazos Bend. And that was my goal going in. So I set up this, Rob put me in contact with a guy called John Sestouli and his son AJ, and they crewed me And I gave them a plan, and the plan was to run 7:10s the whole way, like just steady 7:10s. And I got out there on the day, and I just felt really good. And, you know, of course, you never know how you're going to feel 40 or 45 miles and 50 miles, but I was feeling good enough that it wasn't taking a lot of effort for me to run in the low 650s at all. And I just thought, well, you know, I'm not going to just run 7:10s because that was my plan. I'm going to go with where I'm feeling really comfortable and just see what I can do. And so that's how it sort of unfolded on the day.
At what point did Anne's established record come into play? Did you go into the race knowing it, just like in the back of your mind and not really thinking anything of it? Or was it at loop, you know, 2 or whatever, did someone go, you're on pace, this could be the day?
Yeah, no, I knew about the record going in. And so that was something that I was definitely targeting. Like I said, I was targeting that record, but I also really wanted my A goal was really to go under 6 hours. So I think that, but I, of course, am so respectful whenever someone like Anne Trayson has set a record, like there's a reason that record has stood for that long. And I was very respectful of the fact that you get out there and the day would give me what it gave me, and I would be very happy to break that record. And you know, as it unfolded, it turned out to be an even better day than even I could have ever imagined, really.
Did you alter your training at all going into this race? I mean, you came off of JFK, which is also fairly flat, but nowhere near as flat as this one. But did you alter your training going into it specifically focused on speed work, knowing that you were going to be running for a certain duration at a certain pace over flat land?
Well, the way it played out for me, the reason that my year ended the way it did, and it's funny, it's worked out great in the end, but I sure didn't feel that way after the World Championships. I was training for the 50K World Champs, and I really wanted to have a strong race there. And so all of my focus had been speed work. But that said, I had been injured and I'd had some weeks off, and I really only had a 5-week training block to train for Doha for the race. And I went there, I felt like I was in really good shape and I had every chance of having a strong race. And instead, this completely left field event happened, which is that I had an asthma attack. I'm not a person that I think of as having asthma. I've had only 2 before that time. I only had 2 previous attacks, just full-on asthma attacks. And they had both been 2 months apart about 4 years ago. Wow. And so I had it'd been so long since that had happened that I just completely dismissed, you know, after a while, I carried around an inhaler with me for a while. And after a couple of years, I just sort of checked it and said, okay, well, that was like some weird thing that happened. And, my doctor said probably allergy induced, whatever it was, something in the air. And so it wasn't on my radar screen as a possibility. I didn't have an inhaler. I didn't, and Doha is an interesting place to run a 50K. It's a humid, hot, it's desert, and it's a very, it's obviously a very foreign place to me and my body. And for whatever reason, something in the air just set me off. And I did manage to finish the race, but it was pretty ugly. And so then I thought, I don't know what to do next. I have this fitness, and I believed in that fitness. I believed that I could run a strong race, and I didn't want to give that up based on having had a bad experience in Doha. And so that's why I hopped into JFK. And then, I just, that towpath just kind of spoke to me for some reason. And it inspired me to see if I could do 50 miles on a flatter course. Just how fast could I do that? And so one thing just sort of fed into the other. It definitely wasn't planned out that way. Doha was supposed to be my last race of the year. So.
Well, I thought it was also really cool that as you were running, the internet was abuzz with your progress, Maggie's progress. There's a lot going on this weekend, kind of all around at the same time. Maggie's also in the chat right now. What's up? What's up, Maggie? Good to see you here watching the live show. She has a very valid question, which I'll ask here in a minute. But we were all watching to kind of see what happened. So what I'm really curious is, like, how is this race set up for you? As far as the loop-based thing, were you able to see your crew frequently? Was there like just a couple of aid stations that you would hit? So how did that work out as far as nutrition schedule? or hydration schedule, meeting your crew and getting updates, I guess, about like your progress, you're on pace, or how are you feeling like this could be the day, keep pushing, like did the adrenaline continue to build, I guess, is kind of the question. So it's both a nutrition question and a adrenaline question. Yeah, kind of when did those things start playing out for you throughout the day?
Yeah, so when I started the race, I was feeling good. I just sort of went with where my body was telling me to be. I wasn't paying too much attention to my watch. I was trying not to. In fact, it was more that I was trying to say, okay, chill out a little bit. This is probably a little fast. Don't get carried away. But the crew points it was a really seamless race from a crew perspective. I think my crew probably wouldn't feel that way because, of course, I was running faster than I was supposed to be running. So right. I think they really had a hard time getting from one place to another. And I'm oblivious of that, of course, because I'm just running. But they did an absolutely outstanding job. It wouldn't have been possible for me to have run as fast as I did without their help. I went with a really simple nutrition plan. I just had gels and water. And so they would have a bottle ready for me as I came through. I saw them, it was anywhere from 4 to 5 miles. I think the longest stretch was a little over 5 miles between crew points. And that was perfect because that's about as long as it was that I needed to grab. I just grabbed I tend to, this is just me, everyone's different and they have their own personal needs. It was a cold day. I didn't need a ton of fluid, so I really just had a 10-ounce bottle and I put 2 V-Fuel gels in there, and it was just shaken up, and I just took it together as a mixture and had that with me in my vest between aid station stops. So I just had that one bottle and then would dump that one and pick up a new one. And it was very seamless. I mean, I ran by, threw down the bottle, grabbed the other one out of John or AJ's hand.
Yeah.
And just kept running. I don't think I lost any time. And, you have to stop at a race when you're not crewed. You have to stop to get, the aid that you need, or you're carrying a bunch of stuff on you, one or the other. It weighs you down or it slows you down. And so I'm incredibly thankful to them. And then in terms of the splits and where it was coming in, so John is a really detailed person, and I really appreciate that. In fact, I sent him this sort of very casual 1.5 little like, okay, so it's really just gels and water, and here's some things you need to know about me and like what I do and what I like, and here's the backup plan. And he put it all on this beautiful spreadsheet that his wife kindly laminated, and like they had this like, it was dialed in. Yes. These guys were amazing. And so he would tell me as I was going through, oh, you're X number of minutes under pace. And it was always under pace. And so the first time I saw him, I think it was only 4 and a bit miles in, and he's like, you're 2 minutes under pace. And I was like, ooh, that's a lot for 4 miles. Like that's, wow, and then it just grew. It just built up at one point, I think I was close to 12 or more. I guess it must have been more because I was shooting for just under 6 hours. So yeah. So I think at one point I was about 15 minutes under pace, and then that last loop, my pace came off a little bit, and I was surprised actually that I didn't lose more time than I thought. I thought I'd lost quite a lot of time, but that was really, really struggling to hold it together at the end to make sure that I didn't give back all of that work that I put in, because that would have been so frustrating. Because it's so easy to go from running at 6:50 something pace to running like 7:30, and you don't want to do that because every mile that goes by, you're just giving chunks of time back. And so I really tried to be very focused and disciplined in those last probably 10 or 12 miles where I really was struggling to just not give it back, to just stay as much as I could on task. And that was where the real race was. That was where it got tough. Yeah.
That's amazing. We continue to have live questions from our live audience. So Kim, go ahead.
Question from Nathaniel in the chat room. How do you stay motivated or focused on loop courses?
Oh, yeah. So I think every runner has their own thing that they, races that they enjoy and styles of races that they enjoy. So for example, I am not a person that's ever going to go out, and I shouldn't say ever because, you never say never, but it doesn't appeal to me to do something like what Gina Slaby did, which was just incredible, to go run 100 miles on the track and break a world record there. Like, that is just so impressive. And that doesn't speak to me. I can't imagine doing that many laps on a track. But I really like loop courses. And for me, the utility of having either aid stations there or crew help there, that you know exactly where they're going to be. You've seen the course through one loop, you know what it's going to be. And it also, for me, really breaks up the course. So I love point-to-point races too. But there's something about a loop course where once you've done a lap, you know, you kind of know that you're a third of the way. Like, so for this, it was three loops. So it was like you're a third of the way through. So instead of focusing on like every mile, I could focus on, okay, I want to be at just under 2 hours each loop.
Yeah.
And so that kind of 3 loops is it's easier for me to get my head around than I have to run 50 miles today, you know? So that's, mentally, it helps me to think of it in those terms. But that's not for everybody. You know, some people can't imagine, like, if they're, you know, some people who are trail runners are like, oh my gosh, they just want to run in the mountains. It's so beautiful. It's inspiring. And I get that. I totally get it. Those races speak to me too. But I like the loop format as well.
We had our opinions of loop-based courses, which was there's no way I want to run a loop-based course, until we ran our most recent loop-based course, which was a 2-mile, 500-foot gain trail loop
for 12 hours.
For 12 hours, and it was one of the like most enjoyable race experiences that we've had.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, there was something about it that made it really fun. There's other elements mentally that are involved that kind of made it fun. We'd almost look forward to going back out on another loop, and then there's times when you like don't look forward to going back out, but then you go out and go, oh, well, this isn't so bad. Yeah, we have that same sort of mentality of now we love them.
Yeah.
But at the time before we ran it, we're like,
this is gonna be boring.
This is gonna be dumb.
Or, you know,
this is stupid. We're not gonna do well. Let's do some more questions here. Yeah.
Great question from Raul in the chat room. Carolyn, do you have any other female runners that you look up to?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've been endlessly inspired. The reason that I'm doing what I'm doing is because I've read so many amazing stories of women who are pushing the boundaries, who are getting out there and getting after it, and just whether they're overcoming obstacles. It doesn't matter if you're fast or slow, you know, it's just the willpower to get out and do it. And then there's also the women that are at the, you know, kind of elite level, I guess, that are just doing just wonderful things. And so particularly for me, women who are, I'm 42, you know, so for women who were kind of older, I look at a runner like Megan Arbogast and I just think, I want to be her. Like, she's just so awesome, and she's just kicking butt at 55. I mean, wow. And so people like that get out and sort of defy age, I think, and are really inspirational to me. Yeah.
Arbogast, Pam Smith,
Pam Smith,
Nick Kimball,
Tracy,
you know, these women, you constantly watch them run, Angela Shortell, and you just like, oh my God, they're badasses. Yeah, I'm with you. Totally with you. Well, again, we have tons of live questions still. We're going to actually push those to the post show tonight, because a lot of people are really interested in some of the more specifics, especially like nutrition and hydration. Shout out to Nathan. I know Maggie's still watching. We have to congratulate you on just an incredible run. Like, everything was dialed. It just was so fun to kind of follow through social media, and then to see the big finish video. There's a great finish line video of you coming across, and a huge congratulations to you. 5 hours, 48 minutes, the new female American 50-mile trail record. Well-deserved. A great cap to the end of the year for you.
Yeah.
We're going to get to kind of what's next here, because this is something I like to do with all of our first-time guests on the show. It's called the Quickie Question Quiz. Okay. Basically, what happens is I have a list of very easy questions. I ask them, and you answer with the first thing that comes to head, and we just kind of rapid fire through them. You let me know when you're ready, and I'll just get started.
Oh, sure. Let's do it.
All right. What was your very first race?
Oh, I think it would have been that half marathon that I did when I was in my kind of mid-20s. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Favorite running movie? And I know you've been in a big movie. This Is Your Life.
Oh.
Or, yeah. This Is
Your Day, yeah.
This Is Your Day. What's your favorite running movie?
Well, favorite running movie. I'm completely blanking now, but it's the Western States movie that everyone watches. What is it?
Unbreakable?
Thank you. I can't believe, and I've watched it like 50,000 times, but yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Or do you mean A Decade On, featuring Brian Morrison, the new feature from Gingerrun are coming out soon?
That will be my new favorite. I'm sure.
That's the correct answer.
Yeah.
Trails or road?
I love both. I love to mix it up.
Favorite current place to run?
Oh, I live in a really beautiful area, so I love running where I am. My all-time favorite is Annandale State Park, where I fell in love with trail running, which is in Santa Rosa, where I first started running. I mean, that's where my heart is, where I want to run all the time. I just we don't live there, so. Yeah.
Bucket list race.
Ooh, it's got to be something like, I don't know, Comrades or Tarawera or something like that, to try and do an international race and try and do that well would be pretty awesome one day.
Those are both good choices.
Yeah.
We don't hear those often. We always get UTMB, but yeah, Comrades and Tarawera, those are great.
No, UTMB is a little outside of my wheelhouse. It's beautiful, but I don't know.
Yeah. Guilty pleasure TV show?
Ooh, we have been watching. Oh, you know what? We watched Narcos. Really like Narcos. That was good. Yeah.
Favorite pre-race meal?
I usually go really simple with just a bowl of oatmeal. I mean, pretty simple. Nothing fancy. Oh, I do. Yeah,
you can put pizza on oatmeal, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean like a nighttime or breakfast? Oh, okay, yeah. I was thinking breakfast, but nighttime, again, really simple, like maybe a quesadilla or something that's just.
You can put pizza on a quesadilla, can't you? Yeah. We always love pizza. It doesn't matter. It's an inside joke.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, who doesn't? Favorite post-race indulgence? What was the first thing you grabbed after your new record?
Well, I was really hungry. So I actually had a Rice Krispie treat, one of those like wrapped ones in my bag, and I didn't get any when I was running because I didn't need them. Those are sort of if things are going wrong and you need some sugar fast, that's my go-to, but I didn't have any, so I ate the Rice Krispie treat, which was really good.
That's a good
and
one.
Evil and so evil. Gosh, I mean, they're like the manufactured, ones that
like the worst thing.
The worst.
Absolute best worst. That's one of those things. You run 50 miles in record time, you can eat whatever you want, and you can make it all Rice Krispie treats, no problem. And finally, what are your current running kicks?
Like shoes?
Okay.
Yeah, well, it depends on what I'm running, but I ran in the Lunar Tempo was what I ran in for this race. And that is a great shoe for this type of race because it has a little bit of cushioning, a lot of spring. It's not too minimal, but it's not a trail shoe, but I felt like for this type of surface, it was the perfect one. So
yeah, no weather, like gravel surface. It sounds like the perfect shoe.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a couple of small muddy sections, nothing big, and you could sort of run like on the side. That's kind of crazy clay mud, so I made the mistake on the first loop of actually running through it, and it's stuck on my shoes for. I mean, that stuff just doesn't come off. Like you think you're like, it's gonna shut off, it's gonna fall up, and it doesn't.
It doesn't.
And so the second and third loop, I was like, I'm not going near that stuff.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations! You successfully answered all of the questions correctly.
Yay.
You passed.
Excellent. Thank you.
So before we even wrap up this main show, what's next for you, Caroline? Any races on the calendar? Are you looking to 2017 or?
I don't have any races on the calendar. I am taking a couple of weeks to mull over those options. There's lots of things that fire me up and get me excited. And so I'm just thinking about I got to kind of work it out. I'm not a very big one for doing a race calendar for the year. I'm a little bit more about, let's see how that race goes and then how I feel. So I'm going to have to try and figure out what that first race is, and then it'll sort of go from there.
Nice.
But I have an inkling to try and run a fast 100K on the road. So that might be Mad City, but that's not till April.
Nice.
So, but I might kind of build around something before. I mean, for sure I'd do something, maybe a couple things before that. So,
well, keep us posted because that'd be a real fun one to follow. That'd be awesome.
I'm excited. That one, I would love to go do that course. So, yeah.
Nice. Well, Caroline Boller, everybody, an amazing performance this last week, and a huge congratulations to her for setting the new American female 50-mile trail record. I always say it a little bit different every time, but I think it's always
correct.
It's always correct, as long as you guys get the point across there. So thank you guys for watching live. If you would like to join us in the post show, we're going to do a quick post show with Caroline. You can do so by joining the Patreon side of things. Patreon.com/thegingerrunner is basically how this whole site is funded. Kim and I are able to do this full-time, make films, reviews. Kim has just started her own review channel geared towards women, by women. So I encourage you guys to go subscribe to that channel, youtube.com/mile
long links.
So go subscribe right now. You can even open up a new tab and watch her very recent review that she posted yesterday.
Yes.
But Patreon essentially keeps this entire production alive, keeps the lights on, the mics hot, and all that good stuff. So if you are already a subscriber on Patreon, we'll see you guys in just a few minutes for the post show with Caroline. If you are not, consider it. It's $1 a month at the lowest level, and it goes up from there with different perks and stuff like that. It helps. Every little bit helps. It's basically how we pay the bills. That's it. We'll see you guys next week. Next week is Gingermas. We are going to have our famous Gingermas guest back on the show.
And maybe some wine.
It is going to be a week of festivities, basically starting on Friday. So we'll be building up the anticipation for Friday's big reveal of Gingermas this year. Prizes are already coming in. And let's just say that there are more prizes this year than last year for less
work.
Less work, which is fantastic. The grand prize will still be as grand as it is. We're giving away, like, Jacob Puzzi recently set the 50-mile record on a treadmill in Florida. Caroline, I don't know if you know the time. I don't remember it off the top of my head.
I believe he was sub 5 hours.
I think it was sub 5.
It was like 4:57. I think it's just
nuts.
Craziness.
It's nuts. And there's video and all sorts of stuff. It's
awesome.
It's amazing. And he's on a treadmill, so it's even worse than loops. You're basically staring at a wall the whole time. And this was in a convention hall. The treadmill he set the record on, we're not giving away that. It's not covered in sweat.
It's not covered in his sweat.
We're giving away a brand new one of those people, and we're really excited about it. So that's just one of many prizes that we'll be giving away during Gingermas this year. So you will not want to miss it. You will not want to miss it. And guess what? It's free. It's free for everyone to participate in. It's fantastic.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll see you guys in just a couple minutes if you are on Patreon. If you are not, consider joining. But otherwise, get out there, train hard, race hard, and party the hardest, and subscribe to our channels, because that's where all the content will be dropped. We drop content like it's hot.
Drop it.
Cool. We'll see you guys in the post show. That's it. Bye. Ginger Runner.